Ethan stood frozen, his mind racing as Lyra stepped closer. Her presence was overwhelming, like she didn't quite belong in the quiet world around him. The soft light of the moon reflected on her pale blue skin, making her seem almost unreal. "What do you mean by the truth?" Ethan asked, his voice edged with disbelief. "You said you've been watching me. Are you some kind of spy?" Lyra shook her head, her white hair swaying gently. "I'm not a spy," she said. "I'm a traveler, a seeker of knowledge. My people have been observing Earth for a long time, but I came here for a different reason." Ethan crossed his arms, still skeptical. "And that reason involves me. Why me? I'm nobody important." Lyra's gaze softened, and she stepped closer, stopping just a few feet away. "You are more important than you realize," she said. "Your creativity, your resilience, your way of seeing the world. It's rare, even among your own kind. I've been drawn to it for years." Ethan's brow furrowed. "Drawn to it? That doesn't explain why you've been, what, stalking me? Watching me without my knowledge?" His voice grew sharper, frustration creeping in. "Do you have any idea how creepy that sounds?" "I know," Lyra said quietly, lowering her eyes. "And I regret that it feels this way to you. But I had no choice. It's forbidden for us to make direct contact with humans. I had to stay in the shadows, observing from afar." Ethan took a step back, shaking his head. "This is insane. I don't even know if I believe you. How do I know you're not just some weird prank or a hallucination? Maybe I hit my head, and this is all in my mind." Lyra extended her hand, palm up. A faint hum filled the air, and a small, shimmering orb of light appeared above her hand. It floated gently, casting a soft glow. "This is proof," she said. "Your world doesn't have technology like this." Ethan stared at the orb, his disbelief slowly giving way to awe. It wasn't just light. It seemed alive, pulsing faintly as if it had a heartbeat. He reached out hesitantly, his fingers brushing the surface. The orb felt warm, almost comforting. "What is this?" he whispered. "It's a fragment of my world," Lyra said. "A piece of technology that allows me to travel and observe. It's how I've been able to stay hidden, until now." Ethan pulled his hand back, his heart pounding. "Why now?" he asked. "Why reveal yourself after all this time?" Lyra hesitated, her expression turning serious. "Because I couldn't stay away anymore," she admitted. "I've watched you overcome so much pain and struggle, yet you never gave up. Your art, your hope, it inspired me. But there's something else. My people, they're beginning to notice Earth more closely. And not all of them see your kind the way I do." Ethan felt a chill run down his spine. "What does that mean? Are we in danger?" Lyra nodded slowly. "If they decide your world is a threat, they might act against it. I came here to warn you, to help you prepare. But I also came because I couldn't bear to stay away any longer." Ethan stared at her, his emotions a whirlwind. Part of him wanted to push her away, to deny everything she was saying. But another part, the part that had always longed for something extraordinary, couldn't ignore her sincerity. "What do you want from me?" he asked finally. Lyra looked at him, her silver lavender eyes filled with a mix of hope and fear. "I want to protect your world," she said softly. "And I need your help to do it." Ethan swallowed hard, his mind spinning. He didn't know what he was getting into, but he had a feeling his life would never be the same. Ethan stood in silence, trying to process everything that Lyra had said. His mind was racing, and his heart was pounding in his chest. An alien woman, no, a traveler from another world, had just confessed that she had been watching him for years. Not only that, but she was asking for his help to protect Earth. The whole situation felt like something out of a dream or a nightmare. "Help," Ethan finally said, his voice rough. "What kind of help do you need from me?" Lyra looked at him, her eyes serious but filled with an unusual kindness. "Your world is special, Ethan. There's a unique energy here, an emotional depth that's rare, even in the vastness of the universe. That's why I've been watching you. You, your art, your ability to see the world in a way that others can't. It's something that my people don't understand. But others, she trailed off, her voice darkening. Others see it as a potential threat. Ethan's head spun. He never thought of his art as something powerful. He just drew what he felt, what came naturally. Yet here was Lyra, telling him that his creativity made him a key figure in something far bigger than himself. Threat? What are you talking about? Why would anyone see my paintings as a threat? Lyra took a deep breath, her gaze intense. Because your creativity, your spirit, it resonates with something deeper. My people, the ones who govern my world, they see this kind of energy as either a tool for control or a danger to their way of life. They've studied Earth for a long time, and they've come to the conclusion that human emotion and creativity are unpredictable, uncontrollable. Ethan frowned, trying to grasp the weight of her words. So, you want me to help protect Earth from your people? You mean from your civilization? Lyra nodded, her white hair falling softly around her shoulders. Yes, my people have their rules. They don't interfere with the development of other worlds. But Earth is different. You see, many in my world believe that humanity's creativity can either lead to great advancements or devastating consequences. If they see humans as a threat, they may decide to act. Ethan felt a knot tighten in his stomach. The idea that his world, his life, could be considered a threat to an advanced alien civilization was mind-boggling. He looked at Lyra, wondering if she truly understood what she was asking. "But why are you telling me all this?" he asked. "I'm just a guy with a pencil and some paper. I don't have any power. I'm not a leader. What could I possibly do to help Earth?" Lyra's eyes softened with what seemed like sympathy. "You're not just a guy with a pencil, Ethan. You're someone who sees the world differently. You understand things that others don't. Your ability to create, to inspire, to push beyond the limits. This is something the universe needs. And right now, the fate of your world might depend on it." Ethan shook his head, still struggling to make sense of everything. "So, what now? Do I go to the authorities and tell them that some alien woman has been spying on me and wants me to help save the planet?" Lyra chuckled softly, but there was no humor in it. "No, that would only make things worse. The people I'm worried about, they wouldn't hesitate to silence you or anyone else who tries to stand in their way. This is why I've come to you, Ethan. You're a bridge, a way to help me understand your world and prepare for what might come. Together, we can find a way to show my people the truth about humanity." Ethan exhaled, feeling a weight settle on his shoulders. He had never asked for any of this. He had never wanted to be a part of something so vast and dangerous. But here he was, standing in front of someone who had been watching him for years, telling him that his creativity might be the key to saving the world. He looked at her again, this time seeing something deeper in her eyes. She wasn't just an alien, an outsider. She was someone who believed in him, believed that his art, his way of seeing the world, could make a difference. "All right," he said, his voice steady. "What do we do now?" Lyra smiled, a glimmer of hope in her eyes. "We take it one step at a time. Together." The sun was setting as Ethan walked through the now quiet city square, his thoughts still spinning from everything that had just happened. The alien faction had left, but their warning still hung in the air. "This is not over," their leader had said. The words echoed in Ethan's mind. He had no doubt they would return, but for now, Earth had won. Humanity had shown its strength, its creativity, and its unwillingness to be controlled. Lyra walked beside him, her expression thoughtful. "You did well," she said quietly, glancing at him with a small, proud smile. Ethan exhaled slowly. "I'm not sure what we've really won, though. They'll come back, and next time, they won't hesitate." Lyra nodded, understanding. "You're right. But today, Humanity showed something they didn't expect. You stood your ground, and you inspired others to do the same. That's what matters now. Ethan couldn't help but feel a little lighter. The weight of the alien presence had been overwhelming, but standing together with the people who had supported him had made a difference. He looked around the square, still littered with empty chairs and discarded art supplies, but now it felt different. There was a sense of hope in the air that hadn't been there before. "What happens now?" Ethan asked. "What should we do next?" "We keep fighting," Lyra replied. "We make sure the message is heard. We continue to show my people that humanity is worth fighting for. We keep spreading your art, your creativity, your voice, and you're not alone in this. There are many who will stand with you." Ethan smiled faintly, feeling the sense of camaraderie. "I never thought I'd be part of something like this. It's one thing to draw, but it's another thing entirely to fight for your world." "You've done more than just draw, Ethan," Lyra said. "You've inspired people. You've reminded them of what they're fighting for. You gave them hope when they needed it most." Ethan was quiet for a moment, his thoughts drifting. He had never seen himself as someone important, just a guy who sketched in his free time. But now he realized that his art, his way of seeing the world, had become a weapon of hope. He had shown humanity that their emotions, their creativity, were not weaknesses but their greatest strength. "Thank you," Ethan said finally, looking at Lyra, "for believing in me, for showing me that what I do matters." Lyra smiled warmly, her eyes soft with appreciation. "Thank you, Ethan. You may have saved more than just your world. You've given humanity the strength to fight for itself. That's something that can't be taken away." As the two of them walked down the now empty street, Ethan's phone buzzed in his pocket. He pulled it out, seeing a message from Jana. "The message is spreading. People are waking up. Keep going." Ethan couldn't help but grin. Despite the fear that still lingered, despite the uncertainty of what was to come, something had changed. People were starting to believe in their own power again. The power of their emotions, their creativity, and their will to survive. "Looks like the fight's just beginning," Ethan said, glancing at Lyra with a spark of determination in his eyes. Lyra nodded, her expression fierce. "Yes, it is. But I have no doubt that humanity will rise to the challenge. You've shown them how." As they walked into the night, Ethan felt a strange peace settling over him. They had faced the unknown and survived. And now, they would fight to keep their freedom. It wasn't over, not by a long shot, but for the first time in a long time, Ethan knew that Earth's future was in good hands. Their creativity, their hearts, their spirits, it was enough to face whatever came next. And together, they would make sure the universe understood just how powerful humanity truly was. Then sat on the porch of his small countryside home, sketchpad in hand, gazing at the quiet beauty of the evening. The sky was painted in shades of orange and purple as the sun dipped below the horizon. His pencil moved absent-mindedly across the page, capturing the silhouette of the tall oak tree in his yard. It was his routine, his way of finding peace after long days. But tonight felt different. For weeks, Ethan had been unable to shake the feeling of being watched. It wasn't just paranoia, it was something more. The hairs on the back of his neck often stood on end when he stepped outside, and at night he could swear he heard faint, unfamiliar sounds, a soft hum that seemed to come from nowhere. He told himself it was nothing, but the unease lingered. As he flipped to a fresh page, something caught his attention, a flicker of movement near the edge of the woods. He squinted, his heart skipping a beat. A figure stood just beyond the tree line, barely visible in the fading light. "Hello," Ethan called out, his voice steady but unsure. No response. The figure didn't move. He hesitated, then stood, setting his sketchpad on the porch railing. "If someone's there, this isn't funny," he added, stepping closer to the edge of his yard. The figure stepped into the open, and Ethan froze. It was a woman, but unlike anyone he had ever seen. Her skin had a pale blue hue that seemed to shimmer faintly in the dim light, and her long white hair flowed like silk. She wore a simple but elegant outfit that clung to her slender frame, looking both futuristic and otherworldly. Her eyes, larger than a human's, glowed faintly with an ethereal light, their color shifting between silver and lavender. Ethan's mouth went dry. "Who are you?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. The woman tilted her head, studying him with an intensity that made him feel exposed. "Ethan," she said softly, her voice melodic and calm. "I've been waiting to meet you." His pulse quickened. How did she know his name? His mind raced with questions, but he managed to stammer, "How do you know me?" The woman took a cautious step forward, her hands raised as if to show she meant no harm. "Please, don't be afraid," she said. "I am Lyra. I've been watching you for a long time." Ethan stumbled back a step, the weight of her words hitting him like a blow. Watching him for a long time. His breath caught in his throat. "Watching me? What does that mean?" he demanded. Lyra paused, her expression softening with what seemed like regret. "It's not what you think," she said gently. "I mean no harm. I've observed you from afar because you're special, Ethan." "Special?" He shook his head, his confusion deepening. "I'm just a guy who likes to draw trees and sunsets. What could possibly be special about that?" Lyra smiled faintly, her eyes filled with something he couldn't quite understand. "There's more to you than you know. I'll explain everything. But first, can we talk? I need you to trust me." Ethan's mind screamed to run, to get as far away from this strange woman as possible. But there was something in her voice, something in her presence, that made him stay. He swallowed hard and nodded, though his legs felt like they might give out at any moment. "All right," he said. "You've got 5 minutes. Start explaining." Lyra stepped closer, her movements graceful and deliberate. "Thank you," she said softly. "But I need you to prepare yourself. The truth might be hard to believe." Ethan braced himself, unaware that his life was about to change forever. Ethan couldn't shake the feeling that things were moving too quickly. The night after meeting with Lyra on the bridge, he had hardly slept. His mind kept racing with thoughts of the alien faction, their plans, and his own role in this mess. He had no idea what was coming next, but he knew one thing for sure. Everything had changed. He was standing at the door of a small cafe in the city, waiting for Lyra's contact. She had told him this woman was important, that she was the key to understanding the alien faction's next move. Ethan didn't know what to expect. He had never been involved in anything like this before. But he trusted Lyra. If she believed in this, maybe it was worth the risk. The door opened, and a woman stepped inside. She was tall, with dark hair that fell in waves around her face, and her skin had a deep, rich tone that contrasted sharply with Lyra's pale blue. She scanned the cafe quickly, then locked eyes with Ethan. She nodded slightly, a silent greeting, before walking toward him. "You're Ethan?" she asked, her voice calm but firm. Ethan nodded, trying to hide his nerves. "Yeah, and you must be Jana," she interrupted, sitting across from him without waiting for an invitation. "I know what you're thinking, but don't worry. I'm here to help. Lyra told me about you." Ethan glanced around, still feeling uneasy. He had never been the center of attention, let alone in a situation like this. "You're part of the faction, right? The one that wants to take over Earth." Jana sighed, looking down at her hands for a moment. When she looked back up, there was a coldness in her eyes. "Yes, I used to be, but not anymore. What they're planning is wrong. I want to stop them." Ethan's heart skipped a beat. "You're a defector, a traitor." "Not a traitor," Jana replied sharply. "I'm doing what's right. I've seen the way they think, the way they want to control everything, and I can't be a part of that anymore. You don't understand the full picture, but I'll explain it. The faction believes humanity is unpredictable. They fear what you could become your creativity, your emotions. It's too much for them to control. They think they can use it against you, but I know they're wrong. Ethan leaned forward, his mind trying to catch up. So, what's the plan? What do we do next? Jana's eyes darkened as she glanced over her shoulder, checking for anyone who might be listening. I've gotten access to their communications. They're planning to make their move soon, much sooner than anyone thinks. They'll come to Earth with a demand. Either you submit, or they'll take control. They won't hesitate. Ethan felt a cold chill run down his spine. Submit. To them. What do they want? They want to control humanity's emotions and creativity. They think that if they can suppress these things, Earth will no longer be a threat. They won't let you grow, evolve, or become something greater than what they think you should be. Ethan shook his head, disbelief turning into anger. That's insane. We're not some toy for them to control. Jana nodded. Exactly. But this is what they believe. And they've already made plans. Their first step will be to strike the emotional heart of humanity. Through your art, through the things that make you human. If they can isolate your emotions, remove your creativity, they'll weaken you. That's their strategy. Ethan clenched his fists. That's why they've been watching me. Because of my art. Yes, they've been monitoring people like you for years. The creative ones, the artists, the thinkers. They see you as dangerous, and they want to make sure you don't become a symbol of what humanity is capable of. Ethan's mind raced. His art, something he had always seen as a personal escape, was now part of something far larger than he had ever imagined. He couldn't let them succeed. He couldn't let them take away what made humanity so unique. So, what do we do? Ethan asked, his voice steady but filled with urgency. How do we stop them? Jana leaned forward, her eyes fixed on his. We have to show them that humanity can't be controlled, that your emotions and creativity are the very things that make Earth worth protecting. But we need to act fast. The time for talking is almost over. Ethan looked at her, feeling a sense of purpose begin to rise in his chest. He didn't know how they were going to do this, but he knew one thing for sure. He wasn't going to let his world fall without a fight. Ethan sat in his small living room, his mind still racing after his conversation with Lyra. She had left just a few minutes ago, saying she needed time to gather information and prepare for what was to come. Ethan, however, could hardly sit still. The weight of everything she had said hung heavily on him. An alien civilization was watching Earth, and his creativity, his art, was somehow at the center of it all. His phone buzzed on the coffee table, snapping him out of his thoughts. He grabbed it, half expecting to see something related to his work. But when he looked at the screen, it was a message from an unknown number. Ethan, it's Lyra. We need to talk. It's urgent. Ethan's heart skipped a beat. What now? He quickly typed a response, his fingers trembling slightly. I'm listening. What's going on? The reply came almost instantly. I can't explain everything over text. Meet me at the old bridge at dawn. I'll be there. His mind raced. Why the bridge? And why dawn? But there was no time to waste. Lyra had said it was urgent, and Ethan trusted her, even though every part of him screamed to run in the other direction. At first light, he drove to the bridge, an old stone structure that crossed a river near his home. The air was cool and crisp, and the sound of running water filled the silence. Ethan parked his car a little way off, unsure of what to expect. As he walked closer to the bridge, he saw a figure standing near the edge, gazing out over the water. Lyra. She turned as he approached, her pale blue skin glowing softly in the morning light. Her expression was serious, almost urgent. Ethan stopped a few feet away, unsure of what was happening. What's going on? Why did you ask me to come here? Lyra took a deep breath and looked around, making sure no one else was in sight. It's worse than I thought, she said quietly. I've been contacted by a faction of my people, those who believe Earth is too dangerous. They're planning to act soon. Ethan's chest tightened. What do you mean, Act, he asked, his voice low. What are they going to do? Lyra looked at him, her eyes filled with concern. They're not just observing anymore. They're preparing to take control, to force Earth into submission. They believe that humanity's creativity, your emotions, your unpredictability, are a threat to the balance of the universe. If they succeed, Earth will be subjugated. Ethan felt a wave of panic rise in his chest. Subjugated. But we're not a threat. We're just people. What can we possibly do to stop them? Lyra stepped closer, her voice soft but firm. That's why I need your help, Ethan. You have something my people don't understand. You have the ability to inspire others, to reach the hearts of people in a way that no technology or advanced knowledge can. You can show them what makes humanity worth protecting, but you have to act quickly. Ethan's mind was spinning. Everything she was saying was so far beyond anything he had ever imagined. He had never asked for this. He had never wanted to be a part of something this big, this important. But here he was, being told that his very existence, and the art he had always thought was just a hobby, could be the key to saving his world. So what now? He asked, his voice shaky but determined. How do I stop an alien civilization from taking over? Lyra looked at him, her expression softening. First, you need to gather others. There are people on Earth who understand the power of creativity. Artists, musicians, writers. They can help spread the message. Show my people that humanity's emotions, creativity, and resilience are what make your world special. You're not alone in this. There are others who will stand with you. Ethan nodded slowly, the weight of his decision settling in. This wasn't just about him anymore. It was about humanity, about the people he had always known and loved. He could no longer ignore the responsibility he had been given. He had to act. All right, he said, his voice steady now. I'll do it. I'll help you. But I need to know everything. I need to understand what I'm up against. Lyra smiled faintly, a look of relief crossing her face. Thank you, Ethan. I'll explain everything, I promise. But first, we need to prepare. The time is coming soon. Ethan looked out over the river, the weight of the task ahead pressing on him. He had no idea how this would end, or what would happen next, but one thing was clear. He couldn't turn back now. The tension in the square was unbearable. The alien figures stood still, their presence like a dark cloud hovering over the crowd. The music had stopped, but the energy of the gathering hadn't faded. People were watching, waiting for something to happen. Ethan stood at the front, his heart racing in his chest. He could feel Lyra beside him, her presence steady but filled with uncertainty. The lead alien, tall and imposing with dark, reflective eyes, stepped forward. His voice was cold, like metal scraping against stone. What is this? He demanded. These displays of emotion, these distractions, they will not save you. Ethan took a deep breath, refusing to back down. It's not a distraction. It's who we are. Our creativity, our emotions, these things are what make us human. We're not some project to be controlled. We are more than just an experiment. The alien's eyes narrowed. You think your art, your feelings can change the inevitable. You are nothing compared to the power of our civilization. Ethan's gaze locked with Lyra's. She stepped forward then, her voice cutting through the silence. You underestimate humanity. You have watched us for years, and yet you fail to see the truth. We are unpredictable, yes, but that is not a weakness. It is our greatest strength. The alien leader paused, his expression unreadable. The rest of the faction stood still, watching, waiting for a sign of weakness. We will not submit, Lyra continued, her voice unwavering. Humanity cannot be controlled, and it is that very freedom that makes your kind fear us. A low murmur spread through the crowd. The people who had gathered around in support of Ethan and Lyra stood firm. They knew this was their moment. This was their fight. Their music, their words, their art were more than just expressions. They were a declaration that they would not be silenced. Not now, not ever. The alien leader's voice broke the silence again. You are foolish to believe you can change the course of history. My people have decided, and we will take control of this world. You will comply, or we will act. Ethan's chest tightened. The threat was real, and it was looming over them like a storm, but something inside him refused to back down. You don't understand, he said, his voice stronger now. We don't need your control. We don't need your technology. We have something more powerful than anything you can imagine. The will to fight for our freedom. Lyra turned to him, her eyes softening. She was proud of him, and that meant everything. He had gone from a simple artist to a defender of his world, and he had done it by showing what humanity could truly offer. The alien leader looked at Ethan, then at the crowd, then back at Lyra. For a moment, the air seemed to hold its breath. Then, with a small gesture, the alien leader signaled for his companions to step back. The tension in the square shifted. The people who had gathered watched with wide eyes. Ethan's heart beat faster as the aliens turned, their figures moving like shadows against the dimming light. The leader's voice rang out one last time, sharp and full of finality. This is not over, he warned. You may have won this moment, but we will return. We will watch you, and we will see if humanity is truly worthy of its place in the galaxy. Ethan stood frozen, watching as the alien group retreated. His legs felt like they might give out, but he stayed standing. The people around him began to murmur in disbelief, their voices rising in a chorus of relief and triumph. They had done it. For now, at least Earth had won. Lyra stood beside Ethan, a small smile on her lips. You did it, she said softly. Ethan shook his head, still trying to process everything that had just happened. We did it, he corrected. Together. Lyra nodded, looking out over the crowd. This is just the beginning. The universe will now see what humanity is capable of. As the crowd erupted into cheers, Ethan felt a weight lift from his chest. He had fought for something bigger than himself, and for the first time, he felt truly connected to the world around him. There was so much more to humanity than he had ever realized, and now they had proven it to the universe. The battle wasn't over, but this was a victory, a small one, but a victory nonetheless. And for Ethan, it was enough to know that they had won this moment, that they had stood together and shown the world what humanity truly was. Ethan's heart raced as he stood on the old bridge, the cool morning air biting at his skin. His thoughts were swirling with everything Lyra had told him. The idea that a faction of her people was planning to subjugate Earth, it was hard to grasp, yet he knew it was real. Lyra's urgency was clear, and now it was up to him to help stop it. Where do we start? Ethan asked, breaking the heavy silence. His voice was filled with determination, though his hands still trembled slightly. Lyra's eyes sparkled with a mix of hope and concern. We need to rally those who can help, she said. You don't have to do this alone. There are others who understand the power of creativity, people who can reach hearts and minds. Artists, thinkers, leaders. They're our key to showing my people that Earth isn't the threat they think it is. Ethan nodded, feeling a sense of purpose settle within him. He was no longer just a guy with a sketchbook. He was about to play a role in something far larger than himself. But a part of him still felt uncertain. But how do we convince them? My world's not ready for this kind of war. You don't have to convince everyone, Ethan, Lyra said softly. Just enough to make a difference. The beauty of humanity is that you're not like my people. You have heart, emotion, and the ability to inspire others. That's what we need. Ethan took a deep breath. He had never been a leader. He had always been content with his quiet life, finding peace in his art. But now, that peaceful world was being threatened, and he couldn't stand by and do nothing. What do we do first? He asked, already feeling the weight of the task ahead. Lyra glanced around, ensuring no one else was nearby. We need to get to the heart of this. Literally. The faction I'm concerned about operates from a central location. They've been watching Earth from afar, but they plan to act soon. We need to find out when and where they'll make their move. Ethan raised an eyebrow. And how do we do that? Lyra's eyes shimmered with a quiet confidence. I have a contact who can help. She's part of the faction, but she doesn't agree with their methods. She's a key figure and can provide us with the information we need. Ethan swallowed hard. A spy. In a way, Lyra replied, but she's not doing it for personal gain. She wants to stop the others, just like we do. Ethan wasn't sure what to make of this plan. A spy, a traitor. But if what Lyra said was true, this woman could be their best chance. All right. So we find her. What next? Lyra nodded. Once we get the information, we need to act quickly. The faction won't waste any time once they've made their decision. They believe that humanity's emotional power is unstable, and if they can control it, they'll prevent any future threats. They're wrong, of course, but that's what we're up against. Ethan thought about her words. Control. Power. These were things humanity had struggled with throughout history, and now it seemed they were being pulled into a galactic battle for their very existence. He had no idea how to fight something like that, but he wasn't about to back down. Okay, Ethan said, determination in his voice. We find your contact, get the information, and then we show them the truth. That we're not a threat. That we have something worth saving. Lyra smiled, a flicker of relief in her eyes. Exactly. We show them that humanity is not a danger to the universe. That your creativity, your emotions, your will to survive, these things are what make Earth special. We will fight for it. Ethan took a deep breath, feeling the gravity of their mission. There was no turning back now. His life had already changed, and now he was about to dive into something he couldn't fully understand. But he couldn't deny the feeling in his gut, the urge to protect the world he loved. Let's do it, he said, his voice steady. With one last glance at the river below, Lyra and Ethan turned away from the bridge, heading into the unknown. They had a long road ahead, but they would face it together. And no matter the odds, Ethan knew one thing for sure. He wasn't going to let his world fall without a fight. Ethan stood at the edge of the crowded city square, his heart racing with anticipation. The plan was set, and everything was about to unfold. The small team they had gathered, artists, thinkers, leaders, was now ready. The key to their strategy was simple: show the world what made humanity special, what made it worth saving. But how could a group of ordinary people, armed with only their creativity and passion, hope to stand against an alien force bent on controlling Earth? Beside him, Lyra stood silently, her blue skin blending into the evening shadows. She had been his guide through this strange journey, the one who believed that Earth's creativity could be the key to their survival. But even she was anxious now, her eyes scanning the crowd. We can't wait any longer, Lyra said quietly. They'll be here soon. This is the moment. Ethan nodded, taking a deep breath. He knew what he had to do. He had spent days preparing for this, rallying people who could speak to humanity's strength in ways that no weapon ever could. Artists, musicians, poets, each of them had a message that would reach deep into the hearts of everyone watching. This wasn't about force or power. It was about showing the universe the true power of human emotion. He turned to the small group of people gathered nearby. They were nervous but ready. Some held brushes, others carried instruments, and a few had their voices prepared to sing the words that could change everything. Ethan felt a sense of unity among them, a connection that he had never experienced before. This was his world, and these were his people. We're not just fighting for Earth, Ethan said, his voice steady and clear. We're fighting for everything that makes us human. The love, the creativity, the will to survive. Let's show them who we really are. The group nodded, and the first sounds of music filled the air. A violin began to play softly, followed by a guitar. and soon the square was alive with the sound of a full orchestra. Their music was beautiful, haunting, and filled with emotion. It was the sound of humanity at its best, strong, vulnerable, and full of hope. Ethan watched as people in the square began to gather, drawn by the music. They stopped what they were doing, mesmerized by the sounds that seemed to reach into their souls. The alien faction, with all its technology and power, couldn't understand this. They couldn't understand the power of something as simple as a song, a painting, or a poem. Jana, the defector who had joined their cause, stood in the center of the group. Her eyes were filled with determination. She had shared with them everything she knew about the faction's plans, and now it was time to act. The alien force had underestimated Earth's capacity for emotion, for connection. And this, Ethan knew, was their greatest mistake. As the music swelled, a group of poets took their turn. One by one, they recited their words, words that spoke of humanity's resilience, its desire to fight for a future. Their words were powerful, raw, and honest. The crowd around them grew larger, drawn in by the energy that was radiating from the square. People were coming together, their faces filled with hope, their hearts beating as one. Ethan felt a surge of pride. This was it. This was humanity's response to the threat they faced. It wasn't through violence or war, but through the power of emotion, creativity, and unity. But just as the music reached its peak, Ethan felt a chill. He turned to Lyra, who had gone stiff beside him. Her eyes were scanning the crowd, her face pale. "They're here," she whispered, her voice low. Ethan's heart sank. The alien faction had arrived, and they were watching. He didn't know how they had tracked them down, but they had. His breath caught in his throat. The music, the art, the words, they weren't enough. Not yet. Lyra stepped forward, her voice strong. "This is what makes us human." She called out to the approaching figures. "We are not your slaves, and we will not be controlled. We stand together, and we will fight for our right to be free." The aliens, tall and imposing, stepped into the square, their eyes glowing with cold, calculating precision. But even they couldn't help but pause, taken aback by the raw power of what they were witnessing. Ethan swallowed hard. This was it, the moment they had all been waiting for. "We will not be silenced," Ethan said, stepping forward with newfound courage. "Humanity will never be controlled." He could only hope the aliens understood that, and that the power of Earth's heart and soul would be enough to stop them.